Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Better now.
It's good to see you. Which part of the world are
Yeah,
you in?
I'm in Brazil.
Okay. Still in Brazil.
So it's currently a mix of winter and summer, the same, spoons. It's a little weird, but still, very nice to have you. I'm so happy actually that it turned out to work because we had a great connection during the 3D New York. I think with ideas and the stuff, and I think that it just makes sense to have you on the show. Really.
No, thank you for having me. Honestly, it was really inspiring to hear from you and to connect about Vistech and the future of it. And I think, there are some very important conversations that need to be had. And it's amazing that the fact that we were able to have them.
Welcome back to the CGarchitect Podcast. Today, we're thrilled to host Reem Makkawi, a visionary designer, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. Based in New York, Reem uniquely blends planning, architecture, and interior design with a focus on experimental design. We'll delve into her high-profile projects, where she expertly integrates technology and sustainability, often leveraging AI to define various sectors. Join us as we explore innovation, leadership, and the future of design with the incredible Reem Makkawi.
One thing that I've always thought during, when I was in college studying architecture, is that what we do as architects is pretty much creating experiences, sensorial experiences. So people, whenever they enter a room or a building or whatever, they feel something. They don't only feel like, "Oh, okay, I have a roof, cool, I'm safe." No, it's like I feel excited, I feel safe, I feel good, I feel nauseous, whatever. But they feel something. And I think that's the main thing about architecture and design as well.
And that's something AI can't replicate
No,
to make it like very simple. Yeah.
no, it cannot. And that leads us to the very reason of this recording this podcast, right? Just to give people a little context, when we met like 2 months ago, I think, in New York during the 3D New York meetup, and we were all presenting. There were three people presenting there, right? We were two of them, and I think it was a coincidence, to be honest, because I don't remember Elizabeth Stark telling me to do a presentation on AI or whatever. But in the end, like all three presentations were about AI in a way, right? And we had a very nice conversation before the presentation started, and we found out that we had a lot in common regarding our views on AI. So I would like to start this with you telling us a little bit about your views on AI. What do you use AI for, and your view on the subject?
So I started using AI as a way to imagine the futures that I wasn't paid to design yet. So it was a really nice way to have this sort of creative survival in intense work environments. But then soon enough, it became a strategy. And recently, I've been seeing AI more as a co-pilot, where I bring the soul and AI brings the speed, and it's a little bit more of a co-conspirator in a way. But AI has evolved a lot, and in the design industry too. One thing, not to jump the gun too much, but one thing I've been thinking about is I like the analogy of patients going to doctors with a WebMD printout and saying, "I diagnosed myself." So it's almost like that with AI too, right? Like this is a language learning model. It's not a sentient being. You can't come up with something, "Oh, AI did this for me." But there are tools that can make certain aspects of your work quicker, that can enable you to produce things, that can enable you to imagine. And frankly, like break the limit on your imagination in a way.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny you mentioned the health thing, because I had my share of health issues along the past, I don't know, like 5 years or so, and I found out that using tools like ChatGPT or Gemini was, in a way, like I could ease myself on all the exams I was taking, the diagnosis and stuff, because if you know how to interact with AI, no matter which AI we're talking about, like language models or renderers or whatever, if you know how to interact, you are able to get the best out of it, and it won't ever replace, for example, going to an actual doctor.
Yeah.
But it kind of empowers you in a way that when you go to the doctor, when you see the doctor, you can actually have a conversation, an informed conversation with that doctor. But again, like this is something I do like all the time, because I don't talk much about that, but after cancer and heart surgery and COVID, I kind of started to study a little bit about my health, right? And every time I go to a doctor, I take all the exams, images, and whatever, and I run them through AI so I can discuss the results, because again, some things are very, very exact in a way that they're numbers, right? If you have your blood tested, you can see your cholesterol, and it's a number, right? If it's too high, you know that you have a problem. If it's too low, you also have a problem. So I think that using AI to help you understand that, but not telling you what to do, but okay, I understand that my cholesterol is too high, it shouldn't be that high, what causes that? And then you go deeper and deeper. And again, I'm talking about health, but the same goes with design, the same goes with like everything we're using AI for these days. So
absolutely. And what you're describing is something that's a little bit more nuanced, right? You're not saying, oh, AI, what's my diagnosis? You're saying, let's analyze these test results. Let's use this as a tool to give me certain metrics so that I can analyze and understand things a little bit more clearly, right? Like there's a little bit of the nuance there that's, I think, is really important.
Yeah, totally. And one thing that people don't get about, or at least they seem not to be aware of that about new AI, is that it actually acts like a repository of knowledge in a way, because it's trained on a set of data. So it's trained on health, it's trained on art, it's trained on language, or you name it. And what it does, it's like it gathers all that knowledge, and because I'm lacking a better word for that, because knowledge is different from wisdom, right? Wisdom is what you do with your knowledge, so instead of just knowing stuff. But then again, like it gathers all that information, and it's a wonderful tool for you to extract what you want. But it won't do that if it doesn't have, for a start, the actual original set of information. And when I see people telling me that our jobs are endangered, or that we're going to be all unemployed in like 2 years or whatever, I'm like, you know what happens when people stop producing stuff? AI can't produce new stuff, because that's not how it works. So if we get all unemployed, like from starting today, in 2 or 3 years, we will get our jobs back, because people will realize that AI cannot do that much more. So they need people to do stuff. They do need people for designing things, for example. And you were experimenting with designs, right? Like I remember seeing those very interesting iterations of ideas. Tell us about that, because I think it's a very nice way to explore AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack in what you just said. A lot of people are asking about employment, about the future of work, about where things are going. And I think it's important to see AI as an amplifier for, when you look at those images, right? It's not the fact that the image is realistic. It's what are people thinking about? What are people prompting these days? What are people interested in seeing more of? So AI is just an amplifier of these different things that society is already thinking about, right? So it's important to make that distinction a little bit in order to nuance ourselves and, replace ourselves in the job market in a way and say, no, this is not what design is. In another way, I've been thinking about this a lot, but AI can't design emotion. It can't, replicate regret. It cannot create a tension in a room before someone says something honest. That's design too, So there's certain aspects of life that design brings into the physical world that AI is going to be very, very distant from because of the way it functions. And I think in our industry, it's important to remember that because what we do is inherently physical. It's the real world. We're building actual environments. There's gravity, there's material costs, there's, it's a whole, so it's important to kind of remember that. Sorry, not to deviate, but what was your second?
So I asked you about your approach to using AI to design.
Well, I think it's important to go back to the roots of what design is. AI is just a tool to visualize. You've got, imagery generation models, you've got Midjourney. Those of us who have been in the parametric world for a while, we know that machine learning, we've been doing it, way before Midjourney was invented, right? Like there are a lot of different ways to use AI and these trained models to do it. Right now, everything that I do is coming from a place of cultural movement, of nuance, of design, sensibility, beauty, and then somehow doing a visual of that, which is some of what I showed during the presentation. But at the end of the day, you remember at the presentation, everybody was so interested and buzzing, and they're saying, oh, this sounds like a TED Talk. But we weren't talking about what AI can do. We were talking about what AI can't. So I think it's important to bring back the conversation to that in a way. And remember, okay, great, we can be faster, we can be more efficient, we can do all these beautiful things, but this is not the heart of what we're trying to build.
Yeah, and you brought up a very interesting point, that the excitement that was built after the presentations, because I feel like people found that all three presentations were kind of reassuring in a way. Like, okay, we're not doomed. Yeah, it kind of brought people a sense of relief in a way, because I remember people were very concerned about AI. The questions that emerged then were like, okay, but how about this? How about that? And aren't we all doomed because of AI and Skynet and Terminators and stuff like that? And then all of a sudden they were like, okay, this is nice. Yeah, you're doing some amazing stuff with AI. I maybe I should look into it from a different angle, so I can too start creating nice stuff with AI, because everybody has access to Midjourney or you name it, right, nowadays. And
well,
what you do
you
with
picked
it?
up on a fear. You picked up on a very real fear that the audience had, which is, thinking that design is going to be replaced by efficiency. And that's a huge mistake, because design was never about efficiency. It's about exploration. It's about the sense of the sublime. It's about, creating tension and movement and culture and light. It's a lot of intangible things that you cannot prompt, right?
Yeah, totally. But don't you think that sense of AI replacing us because it's so exact, so efficient, comes from our own tendency to demand efficiency from ourselves? For example, if you have worked Perkins, I think, right?
Perkins and Will, Raphael Vignoli, architects.
So those are like big companies, right? They're not like your mom and pop shop, as people call it. And of course, there's this pressure for efficiency, right? You have to design more and better and faster, and we keep pressing ourselves to doing that. And I think that people, when they see the client, because that's what I hear like daily, really, the clients will be able to do images or designs or whatever by themselves. They won't need us for that. And that's probably because we are expecting designs and images and everything to be efficient, not to be beautiful, not to be great, to have qualities, so I think maybe that's why people are so worried about AI at this point.
Look, you're hitting at a few very important things. I think there are real concerns that clients have, which are fully legitimate and we need to address. It's part of our job. Time, cost, delays, there are certain things that you need to deal with, right? We are paid to design to a certain budget. We need to stick to that budget. There are certain things that are non-negotiable, right? And you know a little bit more about this if you're in the construction industry. On the flip hand side of this, there's, there is a bit of a push towards design as production, as opposed to design as a contribution to society, or as something that we're building for a client, or something that we're putting out in the world for the next 70 to 150 years, or a statement that we're trying to do, or a civic good that we're trying to build, an infrastructure, things that are much larger, because at the end of the day, this is what we do. We bring together contractors and artists and engineers and fabricators and furniture and all these people together to kind of orchestrate this big project that's going to stay in the built environment long after we die, right? So I think there's this important aspect of design that we need to focus back on. And this is part of why I've built a platform recently and my own design studio to be able to address these things. Because you can still be efficient, you can still do things thoughtfully and on time, use AI strategically, but build it for a good civic cause. That's what we're hired to do at the end of the day. Otherwise, you can have anybody do any image. Also, Ricardo, there's a lot of talk happening recently about, what are they calling it? AI spam. Mm-hmm. And I do understand that, because I see a lot of it on Instagram too. And, the more I see people posting on LinkedIn and all these different things, that it really becomes like noise, a lot of noise and visual clutter. So it's important to remember, what is the voice that you want to pierce through the noise? What is the thing that people will remember, that people actually want? What's the purpose of even working with an architect or a designer, right? It's important to go back to that root.
Yeah, totally. There's a phone ringing right behind me right now. That's the problem when you live and work in the same place. It's a phone call. Yeah. Actually, it's the delivery guy with my lunch. But whatever. But still, one thing that I've while you were talking, I was thinking here. Maybe we lack a deeper understanding of what architecture and design actually are. I remember when I was, 16, 17, I was, trying to decide what I was going to do, what college I was supposed to go and everything. And I remember that at a certain point, I learned that architecture was not like math. It was in the humanities field. And I was like, is it humanities? But I thought it was like engineering, like civil engineering. I thought it was the same thing, and it was not. And then, of course, after I got into college, I learned why it was not. Maybe people just have that same, idea. And even though they went to architecture school or design school or whatever, they keep with that idea that, okay, what I'm doing is an exact science, which is not, because you're not paid to do calculations. You're paid to come up with something, to have ideas. You don't have like civil engineers. They're not there to have ideas. They're there to solve a problem, a technical problem. And we are there to, of course, solve a technical problem, be it budget, be it timeline or deadline or whatever. But still, we're there to make it to look beautiful, to look pleasant, to be enduring, and to contribute to society and stuff like that. That's why urban planning is part of architecture, right? Because we are creating the environment we live in, and the way you live in an environment totally shapes a society. And I don't think AI can ever get to a point that they do have. It does have a feeling for that kind of stuff.
The spaces we design are very real. That's the thing that's missing. As architects, what we do is interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary, right? Like we're always combining math and gravity and physics and art and design and existing products and systems, but also newer custom things that we want to come up with, right? Like we're always coming up with newer things that can be done. And one thing I can think of, for example, is concert hall designs. For example, you could have a concert hall and you could have a few mics, pick up on all the sounds, split it into two, left speaker, right speaker, terrible acoustical experience. Or you could have, you start with a 12-piece orchestra and you expand, you could have one microphone per instrument and then maybe one speaker per instrument, and you start to spatialize the music. Now they're doing something even newer, called 4D music. So you're combining acoustics and tech and space and materials and it goes on and on and on, right? And you go up to a little bit of a larger scale. You go into urban planning, you look at bike lanes, you look at sidewalk pavers, you look at, it goes on and on. It's endless. But I think that's the beauty of what we do, and that's what we need to remember. It's not an image that we're producing at the end of the day and we're selling,
Yeah, totally. Now, one thing that I read some news this week about Elon Musk's AI assistant. It's Grok, something like that. I don't remember that because I don't use Twitter, and I'm that old because I can't refer to it as X. Yeah, I can't refer to it as X. I'm sorry. It's like when you refer to something as X, it sounds like you forgot its name, so you just put a numerical variable there, like it's X. We saw X people.
X came from?
No, please enlighten me.
It comes from Arabic. When they went into Spain in the Andalus, X comes from the word shay, which means something in Arabic. But then in Spanish, they translated it to Xay, X-A-Y. And then later on in mathematics, it became abbreviated to X. Anyway, fun little
yeah, that's a nice trivia, really. But
yes, Twitter.
Yeah, about Twitter. So there's this AI thing going on Twitter that people are actually using to verify facts and to correct their words or you name it, right? That's what people use AI for these days. And I read this news that it was actually trained on Elon Musk's opinions. So. Yeah, I can't say that I'm surprised.
You know about ChatGPT being a public benefit corporation?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. So,
yeah.
It's a charity. It's essentially functioning as a charity.
Yeah. But it should. I mean, it's so important that it should because it molds reality in a way. And what I'm thinking here is that once you have an AI, or you have the possibility of any AI agent or model or whatever for being trained after Elon Musk's opinions or Trump's opinions or Clinton's opinions or whoever's opinions, it becomes useless, really. So there's a fine line there of independency. And sometimes people don't realize that when they use Midjourney, for example, to create something, that Midjourney has been trained in a set of data and it will come up with the result of that set of data. And creativity kind of vanishes because of that. Because you're actually literally repeating what people have already done. So you will never come up with anything new because it's not logical to come up with something new if you are only trained to do that stuff. And so I think the difference between us and machines, at least today, I don't know, like in
it goes
50
back to what
years.
you were saying about data sets, the initial, where we started about data sets, right? Like you're starting with a pool of information, and based on that, it's going to come up or combine or create whatever it's going to create, right? It's very limited in its essence. So if we treat it as its own sentient thing, I don't know. There's some interesting things happening. I recently read that Denmark released a law so that you can trademark your own face and voice for AI. which I think is really interesting and important. And then I was watching this like clip about an artist, a sculptural artist, who creates these beautiful hand-carved sculptures. Somehow one of these image making algorithms took this thing, and now you've got all of these AI spam bots that are generating a lot of money off of this guy's image and creating these beautiful hyper-realistic sculptures that are all trained on images that he had posted on Meta or Facebook or whatever. So I think we're going to see some shift in intellectual property law very soon. I think these, whatever images and voices and recordings we're releasing out into the world, it's going to have to be very contained. We saw some version of that early thinking with NFTs, right? Like, how can you start to, build something around digital assets? It was very limited, and, maybe we won't go into that, but there was a thought there about digital assets. But yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the future.
Yeah, I really think that AI as a tool and as a cultural phenomenon is moving way faster than we can follow, really. So people don't know what to do with it.
Nah, it's following us. It's following us.
No, but I mean, like, in the sense that people are always, and I said that in my presentation, that people are always looking for stuff to do with AI. They're not looking for stuff to be done, and like eventually AI is the best way. It doesn't make sense. Like, for example, designs. People are designing stuff using AI, and they're not like designing stuff and then like, okay, how can I do that? Is there a better way of doing this design, like creating a logo or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, that's the mistake people are making, and honestly, that's why it's important to have these conversations so we can teach the next generation that we're not gonna use AI as novelty and try to do we're gonna be intentional. We're gonna try to use it as a tool wherever we can deploy it strategically to help us move faster in what we want to achieve, not to just use it for the sake of using it. Yeah. That's why it's important.
Yeah, totally. And what do you think about, you mentioned the generations, right? And you guys are probably the last generation to have ever lived without AI. Because, for example, I have a son, he's 18, and he lives in a world where AI is commonplace, right? He uses AI on his daily routine to do a multitude of stuff. And do you think that maybe this new generation, the Gen Zs, and I don't know, so many letters for generations nowadays, Gen Alpha or whatever, do you think they will not give that much importance to AI in the future? Like in 10 years, they will be like, okay, yeah, AI, big deal. While we are all freaking out.
Look, I went to architecture school. When I started, we were drawing by hand on the light table, right? And pretty soon it was Rhino, because it was great for making quick models and digital things. Of course, there was CAD at the time too, but Rhino was more used in that sense. And then laser cutting, and then CAD, and then Revit. We could make, 5-10 buildings a year, as opposed to one building that you're hand drawing all the designs for. So the industry has picked up quite a bit, and I think it's going to keep picking up. But the question becomes, where do we fit in? What is our role in teaching that next generation and showing them what's possible? So I think, for example, one of my previous professors, we were having dinner one day, and he said, he was teaching the first year design studio, and he said, one of my students showed up with fully fledged renders of a project and said, this is what I'm going to do. Can you show me how to do this? And he sat there thinking, is this my job? And I started thinking, well, it's us who define what our job is. No, it's not our job. We're here to critically think. Sometimes through a sketch, you can come up with an idea. It's a way to explore a form. It's a different way of thinking. There's thinking, there's problem solving, there's interdisciplinarity, there's the real constraint, like we mentioned, of cost, time, budget, material sourcing, end of life, So there's a lot of realistic considerations that we need to think about. And I think it's up to us to step up and tell the next generation, Generation Alpha, Generation Z, to say, great, this is fun. Let's treat it like a little candy and have fun with it and play around with it. But let's remember why we're here. let's remember the actual nuances of what we do. Let's remember the impact that we want to create on society. Let's design the world that we want to live in and that we want others to participate in too.
And, one thing that crossed my mind while you were speaking was like, doesn't it sound like auto-plagiarism in a way? Like, look, professor, I have this design that I don't know how it came to, exist, and I want you to teach me how to do that. Doesn't it sound like auto-plagiarism? Because you're not the author of that design, really. You have no idea if it works or not, or...
And, part of it too is like, let's use ChatGPT to write our history papers, right? Like, let's think for a moment. We've got all of these different ways of thinking about architecture, and I've been very, very lucky to work with insanely smart people that are very passionate, and each of them has a different method and process. But there is a thing as process-based architecture. You start the project, you do the research, you find out what needs to be done, what the client wants, what fits into the budget, and then you come up with something that works within those constraints, right? As opposed to, let me design something and this is, here it is. That's completely abstract and detached from reality.
Yeah, and then afterwards you have to figure out what's wrong with the design, right? Because you have no idea how it came to that shape and form, so you had to know, okay, does it work? Where are the columns and the beams and everything? Like, is it achievable in a way? Like, you just have to, it's like someone handing you a design and saying, okay, now you figured this out. I think it's more difficult, really. Because, everything is about a train of thought, right? So you have to jump on that train in order to understand what's going on. So when people just show you the train station, it's like, okay, this is where you have to go. Like, yeah, but where do I start? Like, how? Like, are there mountains on the way? Is there like a river that I have to cross? Or how do I get there? And oh yeah, that's with you. Here's the design. So I think we have to take a step back and understand what we do, understand our purpose. I love that word because a lot of people forget that it exists. So you have to remember your purpose. You have to know your purpose so you can actually, take the right train so you can jump off the right station.
Yeah. Yeah, otherwise it's just noise.
Yeah, pollution, I'd say.
Pollution.
It's pollution. Like, you get there and you have no idea what you're doing. And again, like, that happens with design. Sometimes, I remember when I was in New York, I hadn't been to the subway in a long time, right? I haven't used the New York subway in a long time.
Have you heard of the subway stories this week? We've had a great flood.
Oh, really?
New York, it's fun. It's a fun city.
Yeah, it's very lively.
Yes.
But and I remember again, like, I'm not a local, so I don't actually know how to to get around on using subway. And there were so many signs, all pointing in different directions with the same wording, and I was like, "Holy crap! Where am I supposed to go? Do I go upstairs, downstairs? Do I take the elevator? Like, how do I get to the platform?" And
Which station were you in?
I was on, which was it? It was actually a couple blocks away from the One World Trade Center.
Okay.
So I was trying to go back to the Soho, but again, like, because there's like intersections and stuff, but there was so much information going on, both old and new, that I felt lost. And it's like, okay, but like, where do I go? Because there's too much. It's pollution, and I'm not talking about the the actual train line full of garbage and other stuff that I can't mention. It's really because the amount of information and things happening. And again, like, we have a pretty modern subway system here where I live, one of the best in the world, actually, and it's so easy to get around because like you have 10 million people using it every day. So you need it to be very easy to navigate, because otherwise people will not get anywhere, right?
Maybe we need to collaborate on a proposal for the Department of Transportation. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, it would be a good start if they, remodeled the stations, really, because they have looked the same. I remember the first time I used the subway in New York was in 1997. And it still looks the same and smells the same. Rats and all. So, and no AI can solve that, I'm afraid.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let's solve the great floods first.
Yeah, that is a problem. Now, one last question, because we are already running out of time, I think. But where do you see all this thing going from an architectural perspective?
I think, just to build on what we were just chatting about, I've been speaking to some artists who are saying, we're not posting anymore. I'm taking a hiatus from social media. I don't want anybody to screenshot my artwork and upload it. Or I don't know the difference between an artwork and an advertisement anymore. I don't know the difference of a corporate initiative and a nonprofit anymore. There's those boundaries that are being very, very blurred. So I think that there's a future to be very, very intentional in using AI for an impact to tell important stories that we want to highlight about circular economies, about community, about really critical things that are going to push our society forward in the next 20 years, and to remind ourselves of human nuances, right? The sense of sublime, the feeling you get when you hear a beautiful piece of music that makes you cry, right? All of these important things that are quintessential to the human experience that AI and technology can never replicate. And I think that we as leaders in this industry need to take a stand and say, yes, I love AI, I love using it, it's great, but it cannot do my job. It's just a tool. So that way we are also giving legitimacy to the work that we're doing, right? So I think there's a much more important conversation that needs to be had. And I'm so thankful to be here today and to be able to have it with you and at least start it. But I do see a cultural movement coming up, and I do see things changing. And I think with all of this hyper tech, there's of course going to be an anti-movement. So let's see where this goes.
Yeah, it's always the pendulum law, right? It goes one way, then it goes another. Like everything's about balance in the end. Maybe we haven't, gotten to that point yet with AI and the new technologies in general. But I think we will, really. I really think that at a certain point we'll be like, okay, step back. This is cool, but we have other stuff to do, important stuff. And we have to filter all the noise and pollution that we hear like every day, everywhere about AI, about everything, so we can, actually have a decent conversation, as you mentioned. You can have an actual conversation about the aspects of this and the impact of AI in like everywhere, not only in our work but our daily life, right? Like if you can, control your TV using AI, how does it work? I've seen some TVs from Samsung, I think, that they have this IR camera, and if you do like hand gestures, you can control your TV because AI is, figuring out what you're doing with your hand. So, okay, that's a great use, but do we actually need that, or it's just like bells and whistles?
Technology for the sake of technology.
Exactly my point.
Let's just see what we can do and create more noise pollution.
Yeah. But I think we've always been like that. I see that every software releasing a new version nowadays, people are like, "Oh, that's it? Like, you don't have more things for us? Is that it?" Like, yeah, what do you want? I don't know, but I want more.
To your point, Ricardo, I think people are craving something original. It's important to remind ourselves to be original, because the AI is just going to be a mirror or an amplifier or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But you are the creator. You're the original person coming up with the ideas, the context, bringing in the soul into the project. So it's important to remember that.
That's what brings value, right? Because if everybody can use the same tools, the value is brought by what you can do with such tools, because you are different, you are unique. That's a very, very interesting conversation. Once again, right? I'm so glad that we made this work. I'm really, really happy to have you on the podcast. And I'd like to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking the time and being here and contributing to this conversation. And I'm pretty sure the community will not only enjoy but benefit from this conversation.
Thank you, Ricardo. It's been a pleasure.
Okay.
And next time you're in New York, I'll give you a little subway tour and a train. We have a transit museum too.
Okay, I will.
It has a lot of older subway trains.
Cool.
That are cleaner than the new ones.
Oh, really? That's an important point. So, before we go, do you have a website people can, check you out on so they can know more about your work?
Yes. Follow me on Instagram. I'll send you all of my links. I'll send you all the websites. Yeah, I'll send you everything.
So I'll make sure to put them on the description. And Reem, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you.
And for you guys that are watching us or listening to us or whatever, thank you very much for staying with us this long, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.